Hello, everybody. First of all, I'm Chief Business Officer. I would not be doing my co-founder and the CEO justice if I didn't point that out. Irish people do not keep to 7 minutes in a story, but in recognition of the fact that you stayed here till the very end, I'm going to try to get this done in 6 minutes. So, I'm from a company called Point, and I think the most important web page for any growing company that you look at is going to be their FAQs, because FAQs are what you see the company telling people en masse what's really happening. And so I'm going to try and honor that a little bit today and jump to the FAQs we get as a company when we talk to investors. So the first one is, and by doing this, I'm hoping you'll understand a lot about our business and why it's an important time to do what we do. So the first question we typically get, I'm going to see if this clicker works, is what happens when property prices go down? So it's just a pretty typical question we get when we talk about Point to partners and prospective investors. And that's generally driven by headlines that if you read any of these publications, you may have seen. And a lot of people here would be familiar with the Zestimate or Redfin value on their home. And that's a relatively new phenomenon. People were not acutely aware of the market value of their home before, but they are today, and they track this and they care about it. And I'm sure a lot of people here care about it too. So why does this matter and why does it not matter? It matters because we buy fractional interests in residential real estate secured by the property. So we buy a fractional interest in a home from a homeowner today. We give them a lump sum, and they don't give us a monthly payment. So this is a whole new class of financial product, didn't exist before, and it's becoming very important. Now, FAQs are very important, and so are footnotes. And so you'll notice a footnote in here, which is that we buy it at a risk-adjusted price. And that's how we address the question I just brought up about home prices going down. Because if you look at our product, which is a 10-year or 30-year term for the homeowner, and you look at long-term HPA, home price appreciation, you'd sort of go, it's up and to the right enough that on a 10-year term or a 30-year term, you don't care. But the bumps matter. Because a lot like a 30-year mortgage, they don't all go 30 years in duration. The average weighted life on a 30-year mortgage is 7 years. The average weighted life on a reverse mortgage is 8 to 10 years. The average weighted life on Point's 10 and 30-year products are not 10 years and 30 years. So you have short-term duration risk. And so we don't buy high even when it's high. So at this point in a real estate cycle, we would consider it to be pretty high. And so when we buy a fraction of real estate from a homeowner, we're buying it at a discount to the market value. So risk-adjusted means in the money. And that's how we protect against the short-term risk of home prices going down and that impacting investors. What's the secret to doing that really, really well? Well, there's two components to it. 4-letter words, they both begin with the letter D. Take a moment to guess what they are, because one of them you've probably heard a lot about today, and the other you probably haven't thought about in quite a while. The first one's dirt. So we're not just buying fractions of real estate. What truly we're buying is dirt. We're buying into markets where the land is appreciating more than the home improvements. And a lot of people here will say home improvements depreciate. That might be correct. But we're fundamentally buying dirt. We care a lot about land. And land value is driven by big fundamentals. Household formation, labor markets, geography. It's a big part of it. So you're really focused on these things to establish what markets you want to be in. And the second one you've heard about all day today, which is data. Where data plays a role is obviously in property, risk, but as you begin to build up a new asset class, where it really matters in data is you have unique prepay behaviors that are not consistent with any other product. And that's where the data really matters. You begin to understand how people use your product differently from every other product that's out there. And that's a big advantage. So that's how we know how to price an asset when we buy it. Number 2 question is something that pretty much every investor on the venture side should be thinking about when they're looking at any significant company. And that question is, why now? Why this company now? Why this group of people now? So everybody you saw on stage right now tonight, you should be asking that question. Why now? Why is this going to be big? Some of them are disruptive, and then some of them are completely new and just established new markets. So I'm going to tell you the why now of Point. The first one is US consumer savings. US consumer savings were running at about 10 to 15% for a long time. A long time means 1960 through to the 1980s. Then dovetailed off, went below 5%, and they've recovered, but they're flatlining at about 7%. So people are not saving as much as they used to. And that begs the question, what's the most important savings product in the US right now? Most people would hazard a guess at a 401k. Some people will even say savings accounts. We would say your mortgage. The 30-year mortgage is by far the most impactful savings product in the US. You've got $15 trillion of unmortgaged wealth that people own. 1 in 3 homeowners own their home outright. The rest of it have built up pretty substantial amount of home equity wealth. So the average homeowner in the US is going to have $218,000 in wealth, and 62% of that is in their home. And the reality is that's a savings account that they can't access when they need it, and that's Point's job. Because usually when you need it, when you really need that money, you don't want to borrow. What you want to do is you want to tap into it. You don't want a monthly payment. You want to access that money and sell it to somebody else. And that's what we're really effective in doing. There comes a point when people don't need debt anymore. What they really need is an equity solution. And this is why. This is the aggregate of unmortgaged US debt, consumer debt. So these are the headline numbers. And if you thought 2008 had a lot of unsecured debt, so look at right now. And a big component of that, obviously, is your student debt. A big component of autos. And credit cards and the others are actually pretty consistent. So this is the headache that a lot of US homeowners are dealing with, how to pay off this. And refinancing will only get you so far. So we know that we have a very effective solution. The company's been around 5 years. We have 50 employees, and we're growing rapidly. And it's because it's very effective at solving this problem for homeowners. The second problem is US housing stock. The average US house is 36 years old. There's $350 billion a year spent on home improvements. A lot of that goes to Home Depot and Lowe's, but people still need the money for it. And the average ticket on these jobs is about $14,000, but 30% of money spent on home improvements goes to projects that are $50K or more. So these are pretty expensive outlays for most homeowners. And as the population changes, a lot of that is for homeowners who are on fixed income. So we're talking about your baby boomers who need to retrofit homes or change them in some way to deal with retirement. And that's the last thing I'll point to here is why do people need to do this? There needs to be a wealth transfer. The wealth transfer from folks who are going into old age through to the folks who are earning the income frankly, in the 25 to 65 bucket. So this is why Point's an important product. I didn't keep it to 6 minutes. I lied. I'm sorry for that. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.